that moment just made me like cringe because it just felt like the super like overhyped dude who
It
like,
did, but
who's like you're out drinking with your friends and there's just that one guy who's just so loud and like
Obnoxious.
Stark, and it's like all right, bud, like okay.
What up, and welcome to another episode of Brotherhood Without Manners, your favorite full spoiler reread podcast of George R.R. Martin's The Song of Ice and Fire series. Currently reading A Clash of Kings, I'm Nate, and joining me as always is my brother, Zach.
Ayo.
That's him.
What up?
Yo. So, if you've joined us before, you know that we are a full spoiler reread podcast. If you have not been here, we are full spoiler. So, you've been warned. If you have issues with that, go read them. Come back. We'll
Logic. You know.
Yeah. So, last episode, we were reading Johnny Boy.
John 1.
Yeah,
we got the current events at the Wall, which is they're all preparing to range north. Sam is going with them, taking care of the ravens in Aemon's spot, and was tasked with gathering up maps of wildling villages and the like. John did some chit-chatting with Donald Noy, and Donald Noy proved to be amiable. He's a cool dude. And he gave us a sweet line about the Baratheon brothers, and John is struggling with Robb being named king, and Mormont questioned him a little bit on that and compared him to Maester Aemon, and essentially said, yeah, keep your head on straight as we go north, and it's about what you choose to do, not, what you think you should.
This episode, we are reading Catelyn 1. The very first point of view of Lady Stark, Lady Stoneheart.
Correct. So when we left Catelyn in Game of Thrones, they had taken counsel at River Run, and while Catelyn was hoping some sort of peace could be made, or maybe even alliance with Lord Renly or Lord Stannis, that they might have a hope, but the Northern Lords shit all over that, saying that they don't need Stannis, they don't need Renly, what do they know of the North, and they sure as shit don't need no Lannister ruling them, so why shouldn't they rule themselves? And
King of the North!
Robb was heralded King of the North, and Catelyn kind of thought, well, here we go now, because they want war, so here we go. And that's kind of where we pick it up, because Catelyn is reflecting on how her son's crown was fresh from the forge, but seemed to rest heavily on the boy's head as he was fidgeting with it.
Now, there hasn't been a crown for the King of the North in like 3,000 years or whatever it's been.
3 centuries.
And so 300 years.
When Torrhen Stark had kneeled to Aegon the Conqueror, no one could say what he did with the actual crown.
Right. But she does say that the armorers have actually done a fair job of duplicating how it sounded in the stories. And so it was an open circlet of hammered bronze, incised with the runes of the first men, surmounted by 9 black iron spikes wrought in the shape of long swords. And she thinks of how there's no gold or silver or gemstones, only bronze and iron, because those were the blades of winter.
The metals of winter.
Metals, that too. So I just thought it was interesting.
Dark and strong to fight the cold.
I was thinking iron. It's pure iron. Stannis is iron. Have you heard the theories that he is actually going to be the champion of the Great Other, the frozen waste?
Stannis?
Yeah.
I've heard. I haven't read any theories on it, but I've heard in comments, I want to say, on Reddit and shit. That...
so there's a theory that somebody had put forth that he'll be the one that's actually fighting
for
the Night King.
Yeah, that I don't know.
I just think that if that were to play out, that right there could be some crazy foreshadowing that in the chapter before he's referred to as pure iron by Donald Noy, and then in this chapter, pure iron is referred to as the metal of winter.
Yeah, but they say that they're dark and strong to fight the cold, so
True.
It would be kind of a...
But I was more referring to the metals of winter.
Because, no, I mean, I think it's interesting because most people tend to think that it may be Euron Greyjoy who will be aiding
that's
others.
the other, him.
And so, if
I
it's
also had an
Stannis,
interesting one today that it might be Arya instead. And so I thought that one was cool too.
No,
but
Arya's blowing up King's Landing.
I mean, I'm
not relenting on that.
But as they
waited. They were waiting in River Run's Great Hall and for a prisoner that was being brought to them. And Robb was fidgeting with his crown.
Yeah, she says, it's no easy thing to wear a crown, especially for a 15-year-old boy. Well, she thinks it. She doesn't say it.
I mean, Joffrey's wearing it easy enough.
So I thought about that exact comparison right then, that Joffrey's the exact same age.
It's because Robb is raised by Ned, so he knows the weight of it.
Well, that and he was named king.
Well,
Joffrey.
Well, yeah, it's definitely different circumstances.
He definitely, he
but
went to
Robb
war as the Lord of
understands
Winterfell.
the value of life and death, whereas Joffrey doesn't.
Well, that
comprehend
and
that.
Ned instilled the proper values.
Well, that's
so
what
he
I mean.
Knows how to rule. Kind of Fagon.
Because of Ned's ruling, or Ned's fathering and Catelyn's mothering, definitely, Robb knows the value of life, and Joffrey was raised by Robert Baratheon. Well, Robert Baratheon in air quotes, and Cersei Lannister, who clearly those two aren't putting the appreciation of life before their own wants and needs to instruct their child. So, yeah, I really like the kind of light that he shines there, that Robb is uncomfortable with being named a king. Not, and I'm sure it's not being named, because what 15-year-old wouldn't love the ego boost?
But it's the power, the responsibilities,
the power now.
And the fact that he has the morals and the compass
he decides everything that happens.
He understands the weight that comes with it.
Because he's led men in war.
Right.
He understands the consequences of
He
those
sees
actions.
what a lord is supposed to do, and now he understands that he's ruling over the entire North. Whereas Joffrey saw what a king, quote unquote, is supposed to do, watching Robert drink and whore around, and just thinks that that's what kingship is.
King is just doing what you want, whatever you want. And Robb
understands.
As the son of the Warden of the North had to lead a host to battle and make a war call like the Whispering Wood, where he sent a bunch of his men to be slaughtered, essentially.
Yeah.
And it weighed heavily on him in the last chapter. And so it was a really good but really subtle comparison to Joffrey and Robb, and I liked it.
Yeah, so the guards bring forth Cleos Frey. The guards, it's actually Robin Rygar, the captain of the River Run House Guard, but they bring Cleos Frey forward.
And when they do, Robb draws his sword and laid it bare upon his knees, a threat plain for all to see.
Offered the hilt from Cleos Frey's sword. Yeah. And he took that, but draws the blade and lays it across his lap.
Which actually is something we got. Robb did that to Tyrion as well.
Yeah.
And that's a lord's threat, essentially, of you are not welcome here. And it's just brazen. It's very brazen. But
as a king,
for this moment right now, it's meant to. Robb knows exactly what he's doing. And Catelyn thinks of Cleos Frey that he does not look a lion, though he was the son of Lady Jenna, Tywin's sister. He had none of the Lannister beauty, their fair hair or their green eyes. He had inherited his sire's looks, Sir Emmon Frey, Lord Walder's second son. Yeah. So he's a little rat-looking fuck. And it wasn't the sword that was making Cleos anxious. It was Grey Wind. Yeah. Lean and smoke dark with eyes like molten gold. And Grey Wind is just beside Robb, as he always is. And so we learned Cleos was taken during Whispering Wood. Right. He was fighting against them, and he was one of the ones captured with Jaime Lannister.
And so Robb tells him to rise. And he does, and he thanks him. Thank you, my lord.
Your grace.
Lord Umber does not. Your grace.
I thought that was your fucking.
Your grace! And he gets all up in his face, because he's the strongest and fiercest.
He was the first one.
Bannerman. And so, because he was the first one to declare
now he's kind of got to back that shit up.
And so he's like, you fucking, my lord.
If
bullshit.
I'm calling him your grace, you're calling him your grace.
Basically.
And Kat thinks that Cleos was certainly more Frey than Lannister, as he responds with the correct titleage of your grace, because the Kingslayer would have never used that title.
So it takes, I realized, a long time for us to hear the name Jaime in this chapter. Like,
there's almost no mention
crazy.
that they have him as a prisoner.
Yeah.
It's just kind of skirted over. And I really like that. And so Robb essentially lays it out that he would have Cleos deliver a message to his cousin, Queen Cersei. Though Cleos is, once the message is delivered, to resume his captivity and return. And he vows that he will. Of course I will.
Yeah. And he says, you've said that in front of everybody here. Your word's going to be fucked if you don't. And he's going to be sending him with 30 of his best men under a peace banner to offer some terms for Cersei. Now, I wrote down 4 or 5 total. Before because he pulls
Yeah.
out a parchment and is preparing to read these terms out. But Cat, while he's doing this, sees Lord Karstark in the back, shoving some fucking guards out of the way so that he can get the hell out of here because he is not happy about
Robb
this.
notices too, but does make no note.
And so we won't learn that till a minute.
This is super important because this is the dissension in Robb's ranks starting already.
Yeah.
Karstark wants the Lannisters dead. He doesn't want peace. He lost his 2 sons in Whispering Wood. And so he's fucking irate about it right now. And I think a third is missing as well. He's having a rough time with it.
Yeah.
And so he immediately just wants Jaime dead. He wants no peace terms. Fuck peace.
Yeah.
So, yeah, this is the beginning of the dissension that is happening amongst Robb's ranks. And it's fucking Catelyn's first chapter in Clash of Kings.
So
the terms.
Before the terms, the sword hilt that was offered to Robb first was offered by his squire, Oliver. And now Oliver is a Frey. And I just think it's a fun dynamic that, like, this squire Frey to the king in the north is presenting the sword, and then he's the one that gives the parchment with the terms to Robb to read out, and Cleos is standing right there with the same fucking last name
on the other end of the thread of the sword.
And so first term, Cersei is to release Sansa and Arya. They are going to be sent by boat to White Harbor and then escorted safely to Winterfell. In that, the betrothal of Joffrey and Sansa is fucking done, ski. And once they are safe, he will release Cersei's cousins, some
Willem Lannister and Theon Frey will be released and safely escorted wherever they wish to be led. Next,
Ned will have his bones returned to the north.
And all of those of his household guard
the entire
that traveled
Houseguard,
south with him.
So that they can have a proper burial. Now, Kat makes a little note in her head here that this is all her fault.
Men had ridden south. Only bones returned.
And Ned had said something along those lines with his father and his brother.
Time they went south, but she said, no, you must do your duty to your king.
You have to go and be the hand.
Yeah, she's taking on the guilt for it.
And so, she's
Third,
taking it all.
Ice will be returned to Robb here at River Run, delivered to his very hand. And I love that demand.
Awesome.
He wants his father's sword, man. And, like, could you imagine if he did get it? Like, as King of the North, fucking wielding ice.
Dude,
like,
it'd be sick. It's too
Fourth,
bad.
Tywin and Cersei will release all captives that were taken in the battle.
Of the Green Fork, yep. And
Robb as well will release his, save Jaime Lannister alone.
Who will remain hostage for Tywin's good behavior. And Kat sees Theon smiling at this point.
Yeah, and thinks of his fucking smile where it's a jest that only he knows.
I fucking hate him.
Fuck Theon.
And finally, Cersei and Joffrey are to denounce all claims to the north. They are not allowed to have any rights to the taxes, to any fucking laws, commands, nothing north of the fucking neck.
So the first 4 were, okay, but you definitely lost it on the last one, Robb. There's no way Cersei is giving up a part of that kingdom. And so he says that a new map with new borders has been drawn. And Tywin will withdraw from these new border lines and cease his raiding and pillaging.
They will take 10 highborn hostages, and Robb will release 2 of them, or 1 of them every 2 years.
Yeah, 2 a year. Every year.
2 a year, every year.
Until they're all
for
free.
5 years.
They will be treated as honored guests, which actually this is a pretty
Common
standard.
thing.
Yeah,
That's
it's a
what
standard
Theon
practice.
is.
That's exactly what Theon is, yeah. And so he says that these are my terms. If the queen agrees to it, then we shall have peace. If she doesn't...
And he whistles for Grey Wind. And that motherfucker's like, woof, 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 what, bitch? All up in Cleo's face.
And so, there's... Cleos kind of stutters for a minute, but Robb says, these are my terms. You are to leave at dawn, so you might want to rest up.
Yeah, they tell him, he tells somebody to get him dressed and fed and shit, because he's leaving early. And
yeah, and then Robb says he's done with this shit. I'm done holding court for the day. Like,
so,
deuce.
Before they did that, when the Great John starts shouting out Stark there for a second, I just really liked that Grey Wind was there and starts howling after everybody picked up the cheer.
I skipped over that because that moment just made me like cringe because it just felt like the super like overhyped dude who
It
like,
did, but
who's like you're out drinking with your friends and there's just that one guy who's just so loud and like
Obnoxious.
Stark, and it's like all right, bud, like okay,
but he got other people doing it too. And then Grey Wind howled at the end to top it off. And so that's just what I liked was that Grey Wind was pitching in.
Grey Wind adding his voice to any cheer for Robb is always...
Yeah. So
Robb leave.
Robb leaves with Cat quickly behind.
Edmure
it doesn't actually say that, I don't think. But
Edmure?
He just is there. And so I think it's just as that he also follows behind
I
a
think
bit.
it's it's from Catelyn's point of view.
I think
she's
so
little
used
brother,
to
having the little brother
that he's just not there.
Yeah, it's just
and that's what I
wallpaper.
was going to say too.
And so Cat tells Robb that he did well. You did well in there.
Except for that fiasco with Grey Wind.
Yeah.
She did not like that. That was much more the actions of a boy, not a king. But Robb is like scratching. He's like, he's the goodest boy, Grey Wind. No. You see him? Did you see his face though? He was shaking his little baby Frey boots.
Edmure is angry as he speaks up, saying that we should not be asking for peace while my father's lands are being raided, and we should be marching on Harrenhal. And Catelyn immediately thinks he says this, and he knows that we've not the men to do so.
Yeah.
Robb agrees to, and they begin to, she talks of Karstark.
Yeah.
You need to nip this in the bud. Karstark is pissed. They want to march.
And so, he gives his crown off to Olivar and sends him out of there with it because it was bugging him. But, he tells him, like, he'll have a talk with him and get that handled. And Edmure's like, nah, dude, like, you don't realize it's not just Karstark. All of our lands are being burned, and you're offering peace. Like, what are you doing, bro?
Yeah, Catelyn also thinks on the fact that she had told Robb that Cersei wanted Jaime and Jaime alone and would never trade the girls for just two cousins. But she was finding that kings didn't listen half as attentively as sons did. And so we learned that there's a little dissension in the ranks there.
And
Robb
so,
is starting to pull away a little bit.
I think this one, though, and Edmure backs Robb, kind of, because he calls him boy, but Robb has the right of it on this one because he says, he has to make sure that his lords are going to follow him because they made him king. Or she says that they made him king. They'll follow you because they trust you. Whatever you do, whether it's peace or war, they're going to follow you because they made you the king. And he's like, they can unmake me just as easily. And then Cat says, yeah, but if we keep Jaime here, he's going to be killed.
Yeah.
Somebody's going to kill him.
She's just grasping. She wants the girls.
Right.
Like she's a terrified mother that her daughters are going to be killed. So she's grasping for any reason. Robb is being logical here.
Yeah.
Jaime Lannister is a battle commander and Tywin's heir.
Well, see, and that's Robb tells her, like, he's safe. He's not going to be harmed right now. He's on constant watch. Nobody sees him without my consent. But I won't be trading Jaime, not even for my sisters. And that's when Catelyn makes this realization that he's taller than her now, and he's looking down on her.
Well, like, I also thought it was...
But in the condescending
down on
way.
her as king now. And she, I think, flares up a little bit in this.
Oh, yeah.
Realizing he's now taller than me in height and in status.
Yeah.
As Lady of Winterfell, I could tell him, no, you are not marching to war, and he would have had to listen. Catelyn didn't do that because she had thought about doing that, commanding him to go back, and she could have. He was her son. He would have had to listen to her as Lady of Winterfell, but she didn't now and now he's king, and so she flares up and says,
"Yeah,
are you afraid to have Sir Jaime back in the field that you might have to go against him?"
And Grey Wind growls as if he sensed Robb's anger. Well, of course he did. And I think that's very important since we never get a Robb point of view to really
they're the conduits of emotion.
Drive in that, like, he is just as connected to this wolf as Arya, as Jon. Maybe not quite that point.
No.
Like,
I truly do think it is. Because since we've met Robb in A Game of Thrones, he has not been able to show emotion. He has had to be the Lord. Even with Bran, when he goes in Bran's room and starts crying and holding Bran's hand because he's just losing, he can never.
It has to be in the dark.
Grey Wind is his emotional. Grey Wind tells you what
Robb kind of reminds me of that,
feeling.
That Key and Peele skit where, what's his name is the anger outlet for for Barack Obama.
Oh yeah, Obama's
anger
translator.
Yeah,
I definitely think it's that, because Robb now went from lord and commander of this battalion going to war to king now. Yeah. He can't be scared. He can't be angry at his mother. He's got to be kingly.
He loses it here a little bit, because Edmure comes up and says, no, the boy has the right of it. And he's like, motherfucker, like, I am the king. I'm your king. I'm not a fucking boy. But even if I wanted to, I could not give Jaime for our sisters. Maybe I could have traded him for our Lord Father.
The girls aren't important. Is that what you're saying? Catelyn says. And she knows.
While she's saying it, she's kind of realizing, like,
oh, I'm being a bitch.
Oh, shit. And Robb tells her, like,
I'll do all I can for my sisters. My sisters, they are still family to me as well. I think that reminder is, if the queen has some sense, she'll accept my terms. If not, she'll rue the day she refused me. And then he shifts the conversation. Mother, are you sure you won't consent to go back to the twins? You'd be farther from the fighting and could meet Lord Frey's daughters to help me choose a bride.
Yeah, and she immediately realizes he's trying to get rid of me.
He wants me gone. Kings are not supposed to have mothers, and I tell him things that he does not wish to hear. But she tells him that he is old enough to choose a wife for himself, and he suggests that she goes with Theon on ship.
So this is where we first learn that Theon, after helping the Mallisters escort some captives to Seaguard, he will then be catching a boat to the Iron Islands in an effort to sway Balon Greyjoy to assist in their efforts against the Lannisters.
And he says to her that you could take ship from Winterfell from Seaguard. Bran and Rickon need you. And she thinks, and you do not. That is what you mean to say. But she says, my father has little time left. My place is here. I will not leave him before he goes. And he says, I could command you to go as king. I could.
Well, yeah, and she during that, she did try to dissuade him from sending Theon for a bit.
No, that's right after here.
Oh, right after that.
Yeah, when they have the Theon. Because I wrote down this quote because I thought it was super important. He says, I could command you to go as king. I could. And it said Catelyn ignored that. Like, I'm not, like, no. Like, you are still my son.
Yeah,
Like, we're not going to play this game. Mm-hmm. Like, as king, if I wanted you to go.
Catelyn ignored.
And so, yeah, she thinks now that, she'd sooner he sent someone else to Pike and kept Theon close to him. But Robb had asked her who better to treat with Balon Greyjoy.
Yeah, and she just lists off people that are
anyone,
better.
Anyone but Theon.
Because he doesn't see the what this is going to stir up for Theon, and doesn't understand that he has been a hostage here, even if he hasn't been a hostage.
See,
here.
I thought it was interesting here because she says anyone but Theon, and Robb squats down beside Grey Wind here and starts kind of like ruffling his fur, but he lowers himself before Catelyn now at this point to where now she is standing. And I thought that shift was important because they're talking about Theon here. And like, I think this is a subliminal. Catelyn is right.
This
here.
is where Catelyn
Robb was
is
right.
Correct. Yeah.
And now Catelyn is right.
Right.
And so it's because Robb says, as he's kneeling and kind of ruffling Grey Wind's fur, he says, Theon has fought bravely for our house. He saved Bran from the wildlings, and I'll have need of Balon's ships. And she says, you'll have them sooner if you keep his son a hostage. And Robb retorts that he's been a hostage half his life. And Cat says, for good reason. Balon Greyjoy is not a man to be trusted. He once wore a crown, remember, and he may aspire to wear one again.
God, he does. Like,
and but fucking foolish Robb.
Yeah.
If I'm king in the north, let him be king in the Iron Islands. I will gladly give him this crown if he helps us bring down the Lannisters. And that we learn from Theon's point of views, which we'll be getting here in quite a few chapters yet, but Balon will not accept a crown gifted to him by any. That's not the Iron Islands way.
No, exactly.
Like, and if Robb thought about that for a fucking second, this is a horrid idea.
Yeah.
Like, you are giving the only leverage you have to make this man be on your side away, and Catelyn has the right of it. He might aspire to wear a crown again. he's not going to accept, like, he's got to pay the iron price. That's their
Yeah.
whole fucking way of life. Like,
That's that.
and so Robb is done.
He's fucking done.
He curtly dismissed.
Yep.
I'm done talking of this. Theon will be going, and he turns and walks off, and she could only watch him go as he is her king, and that's it.
Yeah, so she kind of gives us a quick shortcut path route to her father's chambers.
Yeah.
She's thinking about the seasons a little bit here, mentioning that it's autumn.
Yeah.
And I did like the mention at the end of that little autumn speak was that autumn was terrifying because you never knew when the next harvest was going to be your last. And it was just kind of...
Yeah, it was a frightful time with
Yeah.
winter looming, and that's where we're at in this story.
Yeah.
Winter is looming ominously over everything at this point, and so the cat chapters get very meta on the story as a whole. Like,
Yeah,
and
they
I really am enjoying these cat chapters. But before we jump into Cat visiting her father, we're gonna convene our small council and just take care of our normal shit. So we'll be quick, and we'll be back.
See you on the other side. What up, guys? Welcome to the Small Council.
So we just real quick want to touch base with you. We every episode like to read our inductees at the end of the episode, or if we get Patreon subscribers, we like to shout them out as well. So if you want to get in touch with us and write in some of your inductees or your thoughts, questions, comments, concerns, you can reach us in a variety of ways on social media. I'm on Twitter at Carstark92. Nate is on Twitter at Manners Without, which is also the Instagram.
Yes. We are also able to be reached via email, which is constantly monitored by our IT team known as Zach and Nate. And that is Without Manners, Brotherhood at gmail.com.
Hey.
And then we also have our Facebook group, facebook.com/Brotherhood Podcast. What else do we got out there?
Patreon.
Patreon.com/Without Manners.
Got some good episodes up on Patreon. A new one will be recorded and put out soon.
Very soon.
And,
the holidays kind of put a wrench in some things sometimes.
Ho, fucking ho, you filthy animals.
Yeah, okay.
I'm not a fan of the holidays.
I guess so. Yeah, me neither. Whatever. Fuck the holidays.
All right. Well, fuck the holidays, and let's...
Make sure you leave us rates and reviews. Apple Podcasts,
Oh, yeah,
Stitcher,
those are cool, I guess.
Everywhere. They're
those are
great.
cool.
We love them.
We appreciate you guys, and we'll let you get back to the episode as Hoster Tully's just, coming to
He's
us.
waiting. He's not going anywhere.
True.
So she arrives at her father's room.
Hoster Tully was abed, asleep when she entered, and small and frail by the death that was growing within him. And it makes her sad, because he used to be a...
Big
I mean, this is, any aging parent, their body mass is reducing.
Yeah.
They're a shell of what they used to be like. Yeah, Cat is dealing with some shit. I mean, good on Hoster for, surviving, to this age.
He just
looks
looks
like a feat in
he's
this
just
world.
an old dude on hospice at this point.
Yeah, exactly. And beside his bed, still armored, sat the Blackfish, his boots all muddy, and clearly he just came in from the road. He was the commander of Robb's scouts and outriders. And she asks, "Does Robb know you've returned, Uncle?" And straight here, as Robb was in council when I arrived, and he'll want to hear what I have to say in private. And so...
He asks about his brother.
Yeah.
And she tells him that it's much of the same. He sleeps a lot because of the dream wine and milk of the poppy. Otherwise, he's been talking about people long dead and times long past.
Tansy?
Yeah, so I would imagine there's a lot of that being tossed around right now. We're definitely going to be catching that soon here.
Tansy will be coming up soon.
Probably the next chapter, I would say.
He dies in this book.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, she notes that though there was a strong dislike between these two, there's a stronger bond of... Yeah, the Blackfish never married when Hoster demanded it, but these two are close. There is a very strong bond here, and she asks, and eventually she asks about the report that he mentioned that Robb would want to hear.
Yeah.
And he tells her, come with me, and they step out onto the balcony of Lord Hoster's solar, and he looks up at the comment.
Here it is.
"My men call it the Red Messenger, but what is the message?"
Yeah, and so she goes in about how the Great John told Robb that the gods have laid out a flag, unfurled a flag for the vengeance of Ned. Do you have the quote written down?
Unfurled a banner of vengeance for Ned.
That, yeah. So I was pretty close. But Edmure sees a fish and says that it's an omen of their victory. That is dumb. I think he's dumb.
Catelyn does too, because I wish I had their faith. Crimson is a Lannister color.
Yeah. And then, is that where he mentions that it's not even crimson? It's like mud and red and blood.
That ain't crimson or Tully red. It's blood, child. Smeared across the sky. And Catelyn asks him, our blood or theirs? Was there ever a war where only one side bled? The Riverlands are awash in blood and flame, all around the God's Eye. Black water almost up to the Twins. Beric Dondarrion raids the raiders, falling on Tywin's foragers and disappearing into the woods. Sir Burton Crakehall was boasting he had slain Dondarrion until he led his men into one of Dondarrion's traps that killed them all. Yak, yak, yak.
Who's out in the Riverlands just yak, yak, yak,
Pretty much, yeah. Beric Don. So, yeah, again, we get
another death. And another revival.
Yeah.
I did want to mention that he brought up that Mark Piper and Carl Vance had made some victories in the Riverlands there once they had been dismissed by Edmure to go and help, but they're
scattered. The rest are fucking scattered.
Yeah, because that's when
like
he says,
because Cat also
she offers a little prayer for them. Because she says some of Ned's men went with that.
Yeah,
Lord
God's
Dondarrion,
preserved them.
so.
Like fuck those. Yeah,
Good.
fuck yeah,
Sweet.
those guys.
But he says that the bannermen of Riverrun are in a much worse spot because once Edmure sent them off, they scattered, all trying to hold their own lands and their own places and not looking out for another, and they've just been getting massacred.
So we learn that the Dairymen had recaptured their Lord's Keep, but Gregor Clegane descended upon them and put all to their sword, even their lord. And Catelyn is horrified as
he was just a child.
Darry was just a child.
And he was the last of his line, which she even notes would make a great hostage. He would get a high price for being the very last of his line.
Nope.
But Gregor didn't give a shit because he's not interested in money.
And Kat starts thinking about what she's lost, and she still thinks that there's days where she wakes up and she doesn't remember right away that Ned is gone. It's still hard to believe.
Yeah, and so while Brendan was going on about Gregor, Kat reminds him that Gregor is just a cat's paw of Tywin Lannister, the true danger.
Yeah.
And Brendan agrees and mentions, though, that Clegane isn't the only one wreaking havoc.
Isn't the only dog he's loosed. Yeah. Which is such a fun way of saying it.
And so he also mentions that Sir Amory Lorch is out there burning down some shit.
With sellswords out of Cohor, men who would sooner maim than kill. Tywin wants anger. He wants us angry. Even terror has its purpose. He wishes to provoke us into battle.
He wants to bait them into attacking Harrenhal. And Kat tells him that Robb is about to give him his wish because he's restless and his men are ready to urge him into battle. And she thinks how they're even referring to him or acting like he's practically fucking Aegon the Conqueror at this point.
Blackfish calls them fools. Tywin wants us to march. That's the worst thing we could do. And then we get the background of Harrenhal.
Yeah, we do.
Harrenhal, built by the prideful King Black Harren, taking 40 years to build. Thousands died during its constructions. Weirwoods were felled by the hundreds as forests around it were just completely used up for the construction. And at last complete, the day King Harren took up residence, Aegon the Conqueror came ashore at King's Landing. Kat recalls old Nan telling her children the story, and King Harren learned that thick walls and high towers are small use against dragons, for dragons fly, and Harren and all his line perished in the fires that consumed Harrenhal, and every house that has held the land since has met with misfortune.
So, A, you trailed off. Talk louder. We're on a podcast. Second, to elaborate a little bit further, for those who may not know, Aegon went in and offered them peace. He said, come out here, lay down your swords, and bend the knee, and you'll be just fine. You can keep your lands and do your thing. Harren refused to come out, and Aegon was like, all right, and then just melted the fucking tower. Flew over, and he burned it so long. Was it because it was that Balerion? Who the fuck did he ride?
Yeah.
It was Balerion, yeah. Burned this fucking tower to the point where it was molten red. This is all stuff from Fire and Blood and shit. So, but yeah, so Harrenhal's still an imposing place, though. Like people.
Well,
think it's haunted,
the towers still stand. They're just like melted candles,
and the walls are still
there.
because he didn't have to do anything to the walls.
No.
He just flew over them and
Burned
melted
them,
the towers.
Fuck that. But Catelyn definitely doesn't want Robb there at Harrenhal. Yeah, they have to do something, and Blackfish says in soon, as there's word of a new host gathering at Casterly Rock.
Yeah, this is the true news that he was actually
being led by Sir Stafford Lannister and Catelyn, and Robb must be told at once. And he says that we do have time. That host is untrained, and Tywin is not the Kingslayer. He's not rash. He will wait until they are trained and ready to be led afield.
Yeah, wait until and so Cat realizes that they can't do anything unless he comes out. So they have to make him come out. And Blackfish is like, all right, how? Fucking how? And she's like, King Renly. And I really like that it clicks for him. And he's like,
he smiles.
Oh, yeah. And he says, perhaps, but he'll want something. And
he says it with a dangerous smile.
Yeah.
And she says he'll want what kings always want. Homage. He'll want me to grovel, and like, sure, I'll grovel if it means
getting help,
getting Tywin rooted out. And so, yeah, it's a really good close. Like, unlike the Jon one where I said I thought it kind of farted out, this one I think that's such a strong line to end it on. And the banter with the Blackfish and Catelyn is primo.
Yeah, there's a lot of good stuff in this one with a lot of different people. So, do you have an inductee?
Yeah. Grey Wind. I'm just going for it because it was going to be Blackfish. It could have been Catelyn, but Grey Wind because, yeah, I really like the fact that Grey Wind becomes this mouthpiece for Robb, this conduit for him. And this reread especially, it's fun to watch what Grey Wind's doing in correlation to what Robb is doing and experiencing and thinking. And then just sort of the perspective changes where, like, when Robb was wrong about Theon and kind of lowered himself, he seemed more like a kid because he like kind of grabbed onto Grey Wind
and he had his crown sent
like
away
Rickon does with Shaggy
Dog.
Dog, kind of just ruffling him. And so Grey Wind because the wolves are fucking sweet. You got one?
It was gonna be Grey Wind,
correct,
but I'm going to go with Old Nan. Because Old Nan's even in, like, her stories even resonate with fucking Cat. Even Cat's like, I remember this from Old Nan's story. Yeah, no, hold on. Let me tell you about Harrenhal real quick. No, it's cool. Let me tell you about Aegon the Conqueror. No, Old Nan told me. When she was drinking some wine with Aegon, she told me about this story when she was hanging out with him. So it's cool. No, Old Nan. Because she, once again, is influencing the entire fucking world.
Yeah, Old Nan is God. And so...
Zach's going to also read our favorite French fry, Julian's inductee, because he wrote in, as always.
He says,
thank you very much.
About this chapter, here's what I wrote. Still very interesting here to match Catelyn's thoughts with her words. She's a very smart and human character. Every single one of her chapters has been a delight to me. Of course. Of fucking course. We can here obviously imagine what she must be feeling, kind of excluded by her son. Even more, knowing how right she is to be weary. Theon, Karstark, she has it all figured out for God's sakes. In the end of the chapter, Cat and her uncle make such an intelligent pair. Loved that dialogue. As for my inductee, I would like to bring in the great Beric Dondarrion, bravely defending the innocent with Thoros, and it seems dying over and over again doing so. I am waiting to read the book explanation about that. It's a good one.
It's really good.
Already being among the clever ones in the tales, that does sound good. All hail to Beric Dondarrion, who inspired the name of the goodest boy around the podcast, Zach's Husky. Big up. And who inspired the name of the podcast itself. Kind of. Valor Dondarrius.
Valar Dondarrius.
Great
I like
inductee,
it.
Julian.
Good one.
Yeah, no, the Brotherhood Without Banners obviously helped inspire us.
That and we're assholes.
We just really liked I really liked the idea of this sort of Robin Hood-esque guild. And again, for you in particular, we won't get too spoiler into it now that it's not really necessary, but there's a fun sort of twist on the Robin Hood tale that occurs with that group, and it's really interesting to watch. And so, yeah, that was a really good inductee, because I do love watching them dive in and out of these, like, just little reports here and there of, like, yep, Beric Dondarrion still
we keep getting
fucking with shit.
Well, it's funny because we didn't know the first. Well, as we are rereading it, we know, but
they fucked up his name.
The first few mentions, it wasn't even the correct name, and they were hearing these whispers. So, like, those aren't even attached to him just yet.
Yeah.
But we know each of these instances. Every time there's been a report about Beric Dondarrion, Thoros of Myr fucking shit up in the Riverlands.
Yeah, it's good shit, man.
Yeah, so really excited. Next chapter we will be reading is going to be Tyrion 2, his second chapter.
Tyrion's going to be fucking Janos Slint up, and I have never been more excited yet to read a chapter on the podcast.
So excited to get some of this stuff from Tyrion.
That one's going to be great. So send us in your inductees for that, or any of the ones that are upcoming.
Yeah, I think after that is it Arya 3 and then Davos?
I think so, yes. But I'm not 100%. Tyrion 2 is for sure the next episode.
I'm giddy for Davos.
I'm giddy for this book. It's like
so
now that we're starting to get into the second chapter for people, the groundwork's kind of been established. So, like, even and I like the way he did it in this chapter with Theon, because Theon becomes a point of view chapter here in like 8 more chapters. He laid the groundwork for Theon. Like, we're not going to get him on the boat. We get his arrival at Pike. Like, we're not going to see him bringing with the Malisters, the captives to Seaguard. We pick up at Pike, and like, it's a brilliant way to do it.
That's right. He was going there, but he hasn't had a point of view chapter. How the fuck do I know that?
Yeah.
Oh, because it was this little fucking side
because we learned it.
But so get us your inductees, and we will catch you on the next episode.
Valor to Harris.
Peace.